We live in a world where every encounter, every challenge, and every interaction is a note in the symphony of our existence. Like the delicate threads of a grand tapestry, the people we meet, whether they bring joy or discord, are part of a larger design that we may not always understand, but are always a part of. Toxicity, in its many forms, may seem like a discordant sound, an unwelcome interruption in the flow of life. Yet, it is only through the contrast of such moments that we come to appreciate the harmony of our own being. The question, then, is not how to simply outsmart these disruptions, but how to tune ourselves to a deeper, more resonant frequency, one that transcends the noise and connects us to a higher divine purpose. For in the quiet wisdom of stillness, we learn that every challenge, every encounter, is but a step toward our becoming, and in the end, we are not merely surviving, we are dancing with the universe. Recognizing the signs of a toxic person is the first and most crucial step in outsmarting them, stoking them. It's a bit like detecting a storm on the horizon. It's easy to ignore it when the skies are clear, but once the clouds start rolling in, you have to know how to prepare. Toxic people don't always announce themselves as such. Often they come across as charming, engaging, or even helpful, at least initially. But the deeper you go into that relationship, the more you start to feel drained, frustrated, or even confused. That's when you need to start paying close attention. There's something deeply unsettling about a toxic person that can leave you questioning your own sanity. You might think, am I overreacting? Or am I too sensitive? And that's exactly what they want you to think. They'll manipulate situations to make you feel like you're the problem and they're just trying to help. This is a common tactic used by toxic individuals, and it's often the first sign that something is off. They'll twist your words, deflect blame, and make you second guess everything. It's subtle at first, just small comments or offhand remarks that make you feel uneasy. Over time, however, those small moments accumulate and you begin to feel the weight of their negativity. Recognizing this pattern is key. There are a few other classic traits of toxic people that you can watch out for. One of them is a constant need for attention. Toxic individuals thrive on being the center of everything. They might make everything about themselves, even when it's not. Their need for validation is insatiable, and it often comes at the expense of others. If you're constantly feeling like you're in the shadow of someone who refuses to let go of the spotlight, you might be dealing with a toxic person. Another red flag is their tendency to feed off drama. Toxic individuals rarely experience peace or contentment because, for them, drama is like oxygen. They create conflict where none exists, stoking the fires of negativity even when things are calm. You might find yourself caught up in their emotional storms, unable to escape their chaos. And here's the thing, they'll always pull you into it. They'll gossip, spread rumors, or tell half-truths just to keep things stirred up. The more drama they create, the more control they have over the situation. But perhaps the most dangerous trait of all is their ability to manipulate. Toxic people are masters at playing mind games. They're experts in making you feel guilty or responsible for their feelings. If you find yourself constantly apologizing or questioning your own motives, it's a strong signal that you're dealing with someone who's trying to manipulate the situation. They might tell you they're just being honest, or telling it like it is, when in reality, they're using those words as a weapon to make you feel inferior or unworthy. Their goal is always to undermine your confidence and self-esteem, leaving you questioning your own reality. So, how do you recognize when you're in the presence of a toxic person? Well, first, trust your gut. It's easy to brush off uncomfortable feelings, but your instincts are usually right. If you start feeling emotionally drained after spending time with someone, that's a big warning sign. Toxic people have this ability to sap your energy without you even realizing it. They might be charming one moment, and then, without warning, they turn the tables on you. You walk away feeling less than you were before, like a little piece of you was chipped away. And it's not just physical exhaustion, it's emotional exhaustion. It's that quiet sense of dread that builds up the more you interact with them. But beyond that gut feeling, pay attention to the pattern of behavior. Look at how they treat others. Look at how toxic people don't just affect you, they leave a trail of destruction wherever they go. You might notice they belittle others or spread negativity in every conversation. If someone consistently puts others down, gossips behind their backs, or manipulates people for their own gain, you're probably dealing with a toxic person. They thrive on creating division and chaos, and they do it with a smile on their face. Duh. The truth is, toxic people often make you feel like you're the one who's crazy or too sensitive. But the reality is, you're just a victim of their manipulations. The first step in outsmarting them is recognizing their behavior for what it is. The sooner you spot the signs, the sooner you can protect yourself and regain control. It's not about being paranoid, it's about being prepared. Because once you recognize what's happening, you can start taking steps to protect your peace and protect your emotional energy. You don't have to stay in toxic situations, and you don't have to endure the emotional toll they take on you. By recognizing the signs of toxicity early on, you empower yourself to make decisions that are in your best interest. That's the key to taking back control, knowing what you're dealing with and choosing not to let it affect you. And the moment you recognize the toxic dynamics at play, you're already one step ahead. The power is in your hands to create healthier, more fulfilling relationships, and it starts with recognizing the storm before it hits. When you see toxicity for what it is, it loses its power over you. Once you've recognized the signs of a toxic person, the next step in outsmarting them is to establish clear boundaries. Think of boundaries as your personal fence, a line that defines where you end and someone else begins. Without them, it's like leaving the front door of your house wide open, inviting anyone in, regardless of their intentions. Setting boundaries is about protecting your emotional and mental space from people who have no respect for it, especially toxic individuals who will gladly trample over it if you let them. It's about taking control of your own life, your own energy, and your own well-being. Now, establishing boundaries is often easier said than done, right? It's one thing to say, I won't let this person affect me, and another thing entirely to actually take action and enforce that line. Toxic people, in particular, are often skilled at pushing and testing your limits. Your limits. They might act confused or play the victim when you start to set boundaries, hoping to manipulate you into backing down. They'll try to make you feel guilty, questioning whether you're being too harsh or unreasonable. But here's the thing, when it comes to protecting your peace, you are never being too harsh. Setting boundaries is not selfish, it's necessary for your emotional survival. You have to make it clear that your well-being is non-negotiable, or its being is non-negotiable. One of the most effective ways to establish boundaries is by being direct and assertive. Toxic people thrive on confusion, on having you doubt yourself or second-guess your decisions. But when you are clear and assertive about your limits, it's much harder for them to play their usual games. For example, if someone is constantly making negative comments about your work or your choices, you don't have to engage in a debate or try to change their mind. But you can simply state, I appreciate your opinion, but I prefer to focus on my own path. There's no need for justification, no need for a lengthy explanation, just a clear, calm statement that your boundaries are in place and that they will be respected. Or another important element of boundary setting is consistency. If you draw the line in one situation and then let it slide the next time, you're essentially sending a mixed message. Toxic people love inconsistency because it gives them room to push back and challenge your boundaries. They'll test how far they can go, how much they can get away with, and if they sense any weakness, they'll exploit it. But if you remain consistent in how you enforce your boundaries, you're sending a clear signal that you cannot be easily manipulated or swayed. If they cross the line, you gently but firmly remind them where the boundary is and that it needs to be respected. It's about building a culture of mutual respect, where your peace is just as important as their desires. Sometimes setting boundaries is also about saying no. Still the no. And I know that can be difficult. especially when it comes to people you don't want to disappoint. But here's the truth: saying no is not a rejection of the person, it's a protection of yourself. When you say no to a toxic person, you're not being rude or dismissive. You're simply taking care of yourself. You're not responsible for their feelings or their reactions. You're responsible for how you choose to engage with them. Edge? And if saying no is what it takes to preserve your peace, then that's exactly what you need to do. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but the more you practice setting boundaries, the easier it becomes to assert your needs without guilt. And let's not forget that boundaries also extend to what you allow in your mind. Toxic people can infect your thoughts, sowing seeds of doubt and negativity. That's why it's crucial to protect your mental space just as much as your emotional and physical boundaries. If someone constantly brings up the same old complaints, gossip, or negativity, you don't have to listen. Politely redirect the conversation or remove yourself from the situation entirely if necessary. You don't owe anyone your mental energy, especially someone who is toxic to your well being. It's like choosing to shield your mind from a storm. You don't have to let their weather cloud your clear skies. But here's a key point to keep in mind: while setting boundaries is crucial, enforcing them doesn't mean you have to cut people off entirely. In some cases, you might need to limit your interactions, but there are situations where boundaries simply mean you are selective in how you engage. It's not about completely isolating yourself from people. It's about having control over how you engage with them. If someone is toxic but you need to maintain a relationship with them, boundaries become a way of managing that relationship without letting them drain you. It's about finding the balance between maintaining your connection and protecting your space. The more you practice setting and enforcing boundaries, the more empowered you'll feel. It's a skill, and like any skill, it improves with time and effort. And the more confident you get in your ability to set boundaries, the less likely it is that toxic people will try to cross them. They'll quickly realize that you're not someone who can be easily manipulated, and they'll respect that. If they don't respect it, well, then you're faced with a decision about how much of your energy you want to continue investing in that relationship. Boundaries aren't just about saying no to others. They're about saying yes to yourself, They're about prioritizing your well-being and acknowledging that you are worth protecting. In the long run, establishing clear boundaries not only helps you manage toxic people, but it also creates the space for healthier, more fulfilling relationships. You deserve to be surrounded by people who uplift you, not drain you. And by setting boundaries, you're taking the first step toward that. Because at the end of the day, no one else is going to protect your peace for you. That responsibility is yours, and yours alone. Once you've recognized the signs of a toxic person and set those vital boundaries, the next crucial step is to use emotional detachment. Now, I know what you might be thinking. How am I supposed to emotionally detach from someone I care about or have to deal with regularly? It sounds tough. But emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop caring about the person or turn into a cold, unfeeling robot. It means you take a step back and create the emotional space necessary to protect yourself from the damage they might try to inflict. It's about finding that balance between engaging and disengaging, and it's the key to maintaining your emotional well being while dealing with toxic individuals. To understand emotional detachment better, let's start with the simple reality that toxic people have a way of drawing you into their emotional whirlwind. They might know how to push your buttons, how to make you react. To boot, make you react. It's like a tug of war where they pull on your emotions, trying to get you to argue, get upset, or feel guilty. The more you engage emotionally, the more control they have over you. And the more control they have, the harder it becomes to maintain your sense of calm. This is why emotional detachment is so powerful. It's the key to not letting them manipulate your feelings. But how do you actually do it? It starts by recognizing that their emotions and reactions are theirs, not yours. Toxic people thrive on drama, and they'll try to drag you into it. They might create conflict where none exists or blow things out of proportion just to get an emotional rise out of you. When you respond to their drama, you give them exactly what they want: your attention, your energy, and your emotional involvement. But when you detach emotionally, you stop giving them that power. One of the first steps to emotional detachment is recognizing that their behavior is not a reflection of you. It's easy to get caught up in their chaos and start questioning yourself. Did I say something wrong? Maybe I'm being too sensitive. But here's the truth: toxic people manipulate situations to make you doubt yourself. The moment you accept that their negativity is about them, not you, you regain control over your emotions. You stop internalizing their behavior. You stop letting their actions dictate how you feel. It's also helpful to shift your mindset about conflict. When a toxic person tries to drag you into an argument or gets under your skin, it's natural to want to respond, to defend yourself. But remember, engaging emotionally gives them more power. Engaging emotionally gives them more power. Instead of reacting, try pausing before you respond. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, is this worth my energy? In many cases, it's not. Toxic people will often try to get a rise out of you, but when you don't engage, they'll find it much harder to keep control of the situation. Hmm. It's like taking the bait away from a hook. They can't reel you in if you don't bite. Detachment also involves choosing how much of your emotional energy you're willing to invest. Toxic people will try to drain you, to make you feel like their problems are your problems, are your problems. But here's the key: their problems are theirs to deal with, not yours. You don't have to carry their emotional burdens. It's okay to show empathy, but you're under no obligation to fix their issues, especially when they're consistently negative or manipulative. Emotional detachment allows you to offer compassion without sacrificing your own peace of mind. Now, emotional detachment doesn't mean shutting down entirely. It's about creating a healthy distance from the emotional chaos that toxic people create. Think of it like a filter. What comes through is your empathy, your understanding, and your emotional support when needed. But what gets blocked is their negativity, their drama, and their attempts to manipulate you. Detaching doesn't make you heartless, it makes you strong. Make you heartless, it makes you strong. It's about finding the balance between being compassionate and protecting your own emotional health. One way to practice emotional detachment is by setting the right emotional tone from the start. If you enter a conversation with a toxic person already prepared to stay calm and collected, you're much more likely to stay emotionally detached. It's like putting on armor before you go into battle. The moment you step into their emotional storm, remind yourself that you are not there to fix them or absorb their energy. You are there to maintain your own center of peace. You might not be able to control their behavior, but you can control how you respond. Another way to detach emotionally is to limit your exposure to their toxicity. If you know a certain person always brings negativity into your life, try to minimize the amount of time you spend with them. You don't have to cut them off completely, but you can control how much emotional energy you're willing to invest. If a conversation starts to get too heated, or you feel your emotions being manipulated, it's okay to walk away or set a boundary. Cody, you don't have to tolerate someone else's emotional chaos just to keep the peace. Remember, emotional detachment is not about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about taking control of your own feelings. It's about recognizing that you can't control other people, but you can control how you react to them. When you detach emotionally from toxic people, you create the space to focus on what truly matters: your own growth, your own peace, and your own well being. In the end, emotional detachment isn't just a strategy for surviving toxic people, it's a way of thriving despite them. It allows you to be the calm in the storm, to be the person who refuses to let someone else's emotional turmoil dictate your reality. And when you stop letting toxic people control your emotions, you free yourself to live on your own terms, not theirs. Because in the end, your emotional peace is too important to let anyone else disrupt it. Once you recognize the toxic person, set boundaries, and learn to detach emotionally, The next strategy in outsmarting them is perhaps the most essential, focusing on positive self care. It's one of the simplest and most powerful things you can do for yourself, yet it's often overlooked in the hustle of daily life, especially when we're dealing with difficult individuals. When we're surrounded by negativity or toxicity, it's easy to forget about ourselves, to forget that we deserve care, peace, and happiness just as much as anyone else. But here's the truth: if you don't prioritize self care, you're going to find it much harder to withstand the emotional toll that toxic people impose on you. You can't pour from an empty cup. And if you're not filling yourself up, you're going to find yourself drained, depleted, and vulnerable to their toxic influence. It's about taking the time to nourish your mind, body, and spirit in ways that help you stay strong and resilient. When you're constantly interacting with someone who is emotionally draining or manipulative, it's vital to have practices in place that help you recharge and rebuild your energy. This could be something as simple as taking time each day to meditate, journal, or just be alone with your thoughts. It's about creating those pockets of peace amidst the chaos, those moments that allow you to reconnect with yourself and your own inner calm. But self care goes beyond just creating quiet moments. It's also about protecting your time and energy. One of the easiest traps to fall into when dealing with a toxic person is the habit of constantly being available, constantly trying to solve their problems, or constantly being pulled into their emotional drama. The more you give of yourself, the less you have left to give to yourself. The less you have left. You start to feel like your needs don't matter, like you exist solely to serve the needs of others. That's why one of the most important aspects of self care is learning to say no when necessary. This isn't just about setting boundaries with a toxic person, it's about setting boundaries with yourself too. How much of your energy are you willing to invest? How much time are you willing to sacrifice? The more you take care of your own needs first, the more you're able to show up as the best version of yourself, whether that's in your personal life, your professional life, or any other relationship. The thing with toxic people is that they often prey on your sense of responsibility. Uh, they make you feel like you have to fix them, or that it's your job to make them happy. But here's the reality: you can't fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed. And by constantly giving, you're only setting yourself up for burnout. Instead, by focusing on your own self care, you allow yourself to let go of the need to rescue others. You accept that the only person you can truly control is yourself, and the only thing you have a responsibility to is your own well being. One of the most powerful forms of self care is getting enough rest. It sounds simple, doesn't it? But when we're constantly stressed, trying to deal with difficult people, it's easy to sacrifice sleep or neglect our physical health. And yet, rest is essential to maintaining a healthy mind and body. You can't think clearly, stay calm under pressure, or make the best decisions if you're exhausted. That's why carving out time for rest is a non-negotiable part of self-care. Whether it's going to bed earlier, taking a short nap during the day, or just stepping away for a few moments to breathe, allowing yourself to rest and recharge, is essential for maintaining your resilience. Self-care also involves surrounding yourself with positive influences. When you're dealing with toxic individuals, it can feel like you're drowning in negativity. But one of the most effective ways to counteract that negativity is to intentionally seek out people who uplift you, who make you feel good about yourself, and who support you in your goals. This doesn't mean you have to cut out everyone who's not a perfect match for your energy. It simply means making time for relationships that bring you joy and encouragement. These people act as emotional anchors in a storm, reminding you of your worth and helping you stay grounded when things get tough. Another key component of self-care is cultivating a healthy mind. It's easy to get caught up in the drama and stress that toxic people bring, but you have to make a conscious effort to protect your mental health. This means taking the time to engage in activities that stimulate your mind in positive ways, whether that's reading, learning something new, or simply engaging in a hobby that brings you joy. A healthy mind is one that can think clearly, make rational decisions, and resist the manipulation and chaos that toxic people try to create. When you nourish your mind, you build resilience against negativity. Lastly, self-care includes accepting that you can't control everything. It's one of the hardest things to accept, especially when you're trying to navigate toxic relationships. But the truth is, you can't change people. You can't force someone to be kind, respectful, or healthy, but you can change how you respond. Fourth, respond. By focusing on your own self-care, you give yourself the strength to deal with challenges in a healthier way. You stop internalizing someone else's behavior, and you start focusing on how you show up in the world. You choose to be the person who doesn't let toxic people control your mood, your actions, or your life. In the end, self-care isn't just about feeling better temporarily, it's about building long-term resilience, strength, and clarity. It's about creating the emotional, mental, and physical resources necessary to outsmart toxic people and protect yourself from their negative influence. When you take care of yourself, you empower yourself to handle life's challenges with grace and confidence. Because when you prioritize your own well-being, everything else falls into place. You become stronger, more focused, and more capable of facing whatever comes your way. And when you're at your best, nothing toxic can stand in your way. When you're dealing with a toxic person, one of the most powerful tools in your arsenal is the ability to control the narrative and stay calm. It's tempting, I know, to want to fight back or get defensive when someone tries to manipulate or provoke you. You. After all, our natural instinct is to stand up for ourselves, to argue our point, and to try to set the record straight. But in the case of toxic individuals, engaging in that way only plays into their hands. They thrive on the drama, the chaos, the emotional back and forth. We eat emotional back and forth. So, what if the secret to winning wasn't to engage at all, but to take a step back, stay calm, and control the narrative from a place of clarity and strength? The first thing to understand is that toxic people often don't play fair. They'll twist your words, use guilt to manipulate, and turn a simple conversation into an emotional battleground. Their goal isn't to have a productive conversation or resolve any issues. Their goal is to make you feel small, to disarm you, to take the focus off their own toxic behavior. When you engage in the same way, getting upset, raising your voice, or fighting back, you're giving them exactly what they want: control over the situation. So, the key here is to stay composed and maintain control over your emotions. That doesn't mean you don't feel upset or frustrated. Of course you will. But it means you don't allow those feelings to drive your actions. You don't let your emotions control you. When you can stay calm and centered, you automatically shift the power dynamic. You take control of the narrative. Oh. Instead of reacting to their provocations, you respond in a way that doesn't give them the ammunition they want. Think about it like this. When you're calm, you create space between you and a toxic person. You stop being their emotional punching bag and instead, you become the person who is above the fray. You refuse to stoop to their level. And when you do this consistently, you begin to change the rules of engagement. The toxic person might try to drag you into a spiral of negativity. But if you stay grounded and don't give them that emotional reaction, you start to shift the power in your favor. It's like a game of chess. You don't react impulsively. You think strategically, always staying one step ahead. One powerful way to control the narrative is through the art of redirection. When a toxic person tries to bring negativity into the conversation, you can choose to redirect the discussion back to a more neutral or positive space. It's a subtle move, but incredibly effective. For example, if someone tries to bring up a personal attack or criticize you in an unjustified way, rather than defending yourself or getting emotional, you can calmly say something like, "I understand you're upset, but I don't think this is the right time to talk about this. Let's focus on finding a solution instead." By doing this, you take the power back. You don't engage in the negativity. You don't allow them to pull you into their web of drama. Instead, you stay focused on your own response, setting the tone for the conversation. 我是 Another aspect of controlling the narrative is being clear and firm in your communication. Toxic people will often try to confuse the situation, clouding things with vague accusations or manipulative behavior. But when you're clear about what you need and what you won't tolerate, they have a harder time twisting the situation. You can use simple, direct statements that leave no room for misinterpretation. If a toxic person tries to provoke you, you can calmly say, "I hear your concerns, but I am not going to engage in this kind of conversation." No explanation, no excuses, just a clear, firm statement of what's acceptable and what's not. And here's the thing, when you don't explain yourself, when you don't try to justify your boundaries or defend your position, you make it harder for them to attack. Your actions speak for themselves. It's also important to recognize when it's time to disengage. Sometimes, no matter how much you control the narrative or how calm you stay, a toxic person will not be satisfied unless they get their way. They'll keep pushing, they'll keep trying to draw you in, and they'll keep escalating the situation. This is when it's time to walk away. Leaving the conversation isn't about giving up or admitting defeat. It's about protecting your peace. It's about taking a stand for your emotional well-being. And the best part is, when you walk away without engaging, you send a powerful message. I won't play by your rules. I won't be dragged into your drama. The more you disengage in these situations, the more control you gain over your own emotional state. Now, staying calm doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It doesn't mean pretending like everything is fine when it's not. What it does mean is that you don't allow the toxic person to dictate how you feel or how you respond. You don't let them have that power. You own your own emotions. You acknowledge them, process them, but then you choose how to act rather than letting your emotions dictate your actions. Here's something else to consider. Staying calm also allows you to think more clearly. Toxic people thrive on confusion and chaos, and when you're emotionally reactive, it becomes harder to see things clearly. You might get caught up in the heat of the moment, and before you know it, you're fighting battles that don't even matter. But when you stay calm, you can think strategically, assess the situation objectively, and decide on the best course of action. It's about being mindful of how you engage, and knowing that you don't have to get caught up in someone else's mess. It's about protecting your energy and staying true to yourself, even in the face of toxicity. And when you do this consistently, you not only outsmart the toxic person, but you also regain control over your own life. Because when you control the narrative, you control your peace. Ugh.